welcome to the VSA Capital Tech and Transitional Energy Podcast on Thursday, March the 27th. And Phil, I can ask how you are because you're not in the office today.
No, I'm at home in Newmarket and it's beautiful and sunny, but I do have a dentist appointment late this afternoon.
What, at 2:30? Oh, the old ones are always the best. I don't know. Okay, well, what have we got to talk about this week? I mean, this week actually is the sort of the global stuff really has been more generalistic in as much as obviously we've got Trump the chump, as I call him, or Trump the slump, or Trump the tariff, slapping tariffs on foreign automakers and auto parts makers at 25%. I mean, he really is going for it, isn't he?
My word, and like autos are a big part of, if you're auto manufacturing, does contribute to GDP because it's big ticket items.
Well, they reckon it could mean that Rachel from accounts, her forecast now of 1% GDP could go to 0. Obviously started at 2. We're slowly going downhill with her, but that's not a surprise. But it's also, what is interesting, Phil, I mean, I have talked a little bit on this podcast, not as much as maybe you guys have all heard from me in the office, or my clients certainly hear from me when I'm talking to them. This is the end of Bretton Woods. And I've been saying it for some time now that Bretton Woods is all over. And therefore, you need to look at the consequences of what happens around the world. Actually, what America's doing is not daft. But the rest of the world needs to fit into what America is doing by cutting off the rest of the world and becoming much more isolated. And actually, I mean, the shame is in particular, like if you look at what they're doing on the military side and aviation, of course, the UK used to have some really good aviation and defence business. We still do, in truth, BAE Systems, Rolls-Royce, but an awful lot of them also have either been bought by American companies or bought by private equity that's American-backed. So we have lost some of those skill sets. We need to get them back again, really. We need a bit of long-term planning. But again, if you go through the whole demise of Bretton Woods, the dollar becomes a lot weaker, commodities become much more important, having your own energy becomes much more important, having your own agriculture becomes much more important. Actually, it's great for America. Actually, the UK is pretty good. And we have some very good relationships with people like Australia and New Zealand and actually Canada because of the Commonwealth that really helps us. The country that really suffers actually is Germany, because they don't really have anything of their own. But there's a lot of it's a fascinating space to look at. Also, just going on to the automotive, I have been sent today for some reason numerous adverts for second-hand Teslas, because the second-hand market in Teslas is falling out of bed. Apparently, you can now get an almost brand new Tesla, but second-hand for about £15,000. I think people are suggesting, am I about to make the dive in and buy one? Don't think I am quite yet. I'm waiting for these cheap Chinese ones to come along, and then I'll buy a BYD. But we've also, of course, we did have the spring statement yesterday from Rachel from accounts. The good news, in my view, was she didn't really say an awful lot that affected me. So, I thought it was a few moment. Gosh, didn't actually steal any more money off me. And we also had the inflation figure not coming down a bit, actually, to 2.8%. Rather weirdly, it was apparent because of the price of women's clothes. But I assume that was just because Rachel from accounts was getting them all free. So the price of women's clothes is going down to 0. Maybe I'm making too much of a political statement there. I'll just shut up. Sorry. Anyway, that's the sort of big picture. Nothing too exciting. Also, just people should be aware, use this as a bit of a chance. We are doing an Infinity Energy Roadshow next week. We've actually got a lot of institutions who want to hear what they've got to say, probably because there's been not much news flow for 6 months, really. There's been a little bit. But just if people wanted to know more about that, then do let us know is the answer. So on that note, unless you've got anything generalistic you want to talk about, Phil?
Well, I guess the other bit, the big news, I mean, you did mention Germany, Andrew. Obviously, automotive is a key part of their industry, but their debt the way that they're changing their debt structures so that they can invest very heavily in defence. So that's going to be very interesting to see.
Well, it'll be interesting to see Germany rebuild its military. I think that has a lot of pros and cons, shall we say.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to go any further on that one either.
Right.
So there we go. Right. What else? Yeah. Let's go do some figures or something and see what comes of it. Actually, just before you get into your figures,
Yeah.
can I just comment on one that we regularly comment on here, but it's just one of my favourite companies. And actually, I would love someone like the National Wealth Fund to sit up and listen to this. So if there's anybody from the National Wealth Fund listen to this podcast, there probably isn't, but just in case. Nano One, which is our favourite sort of battery company over in Canada, had their sort of Q4 results, or whatever, and summary of the whole year, which were pretty good, actually, to be honest with you. And what I love about this company is they are basically developing the one-pot process to create cathodes. I've got that right, haven't I? I always get confused between my cathode and my anode.
Yeah, it's cathode tech. Yeah.
Cathode technology. Yeah. In a very novel way, and it's something that someone in the UK should be doing in partnership with them. You can buy a license of them and they will come and set it up for you. But what's amazing about them is they'd basically be able to get to this incredible position without actually raising a huge amount of capital and not diluting down their shareholders. So as an example, they invested about $10 million into Candiac 3 years ago. They've managed to leverage that up through various ways of selling land, grants, technology investment agreements, etc., zero interest loans, and it's made the equivalent of $60 million go into that business. So it's really smart the way they do things. And obviously what that increased sort of capital going in allows them to execute everything without having to go back to shareholders, and going back to shareholders in these markets are never easy. This is a great company. It's one of the best battery companies in the West, and that's not easy because China is so dominant. Someone in the UK should partner with them and work with them, because I'll tell you what, you'll get an amazing deal. Anyway, there you go. I've said it. But you'd agree with me, wouldn't you, Phil?
Yeah, the way that it's funded has been very, very smart, and they've had backing from the US DoD to develop their technology. The government of Quebec as well. They've got partnership with Worley for the technology. I think they've also got a partnership with Rio Tinto as well. Andrew, correct me if I'm wrong, but they've got a number of industrial partnerships as well. So yeah, they're certainly advancing and being very smart in the way they're being funded.
Anyway, there you go. Enough on that one for now.
Right.
Over to you, Phil. Come on, rattle through the results. There's been a lot of results.
There are, and no doubt, Andrew, you'll be spotting ones that I didn't see. But let's go through the ones that I picked up, and we'll stick with. We started with automotive, and let's stay with it. AB Dynamics, ticket is ABD, market cap's 434 million. They've had a trading update. They're a really interesting company, this, because they're involved in the testing of new automotive technologies from the automakers. So they do advanced testing of safety systems on cars, things like collision avoidance systems, semi-autonomy systems. So they do all of this. They do it for the major automotive makers. Despite the ups and downs of the industry of late, they're continuing to make good, strong progress. And the trading update, and this was for the 6 months ending 28th of February 2025. Group expects to deliver a revenue for the period of £58 million, representing growth of 11%. And they've seen strong contributions from all their sectors of business, particularly in autonomous systems and active safety systems. They've seen strong growth from Asia Pacific and North America, so good international growth, and their order books are building, and with strong cash generation as well. So, doing very well during a period where the industry as a whole has been having mixed results. So, therefore, as the industry improves, which hopefully it will, they'll do very well. So that was good to see.
Very good.
Okay, that was AB Dynamics. this is as we've been on trains quite a bit. We've been on trains a bit this year, Andrew, haven't we? And been looking at passenger information systems for train times, etc. Journeo, this is a company we've mentioned before. The ticket is JNEO. They provide information systems and technical services to transport operators. So there's things like CCTV, systems for driver safety, like telematics, driver performance monitoring. And they're selling their systems and technologies into people like Network Rail, but also local authorities and other transport companies. But they're not just a UK based business; it's also international as well. So they've been selling systems into New York Metro systems. And also in the Nordics, they reported Journeo. This is full year results to December. The revenues are up by 8% to just under £50 million. That drop through to gross profit was up by 24% to £17.7 million. Profits up by just over 30%. And cash at the end of the period up from 8.1 million to 14.3 million pounds. So that's Journeo doing very well in the transport sector. I just noticed that the shares have been down by about 3% in the last 6 months, and they've ticked up recently. And this is something, if you look across the market, we've been seeing, particularly in the tech sector, we've been seeing more widely. It's the same for AB Dynamics, which I just discussed. The shares were down by 2.5% in 6 months, but again have been picking up in the last month. So we've seen, just for general market sentiment, some of these shares down a little bit, but ticking up more recently. So that was good to see. So that was Journeo. We put on SRT Marine Systems, been listed for a long time. Ticket is SRT. The share price here has been doing very well. I mean, the shares are up by 19% this week. They had their interims to December. Really interesting company, this. It's involved in maritime safety, and they develop automatic identification systems, such as transmitters and receivers that go into all sorts of marine vessels around the globe. And they're used to track vessels so they don't collide with each other, but also so their nations know where all the shipping is around their areas. They reported revenues up to £26.2 million from £5.5 million in the prior period, and they have been announcing some very large contracts. Their gross profit margin was up to 46% from 37%. And they have a $213 million contract with the Kuwaiti Minister of the Interior to deliver maritime safety systems. It's working with 5 nation states as customers, and in total has £320 million of contracts for systems. That was SRT Marine.
Very good. Don't worry, I'm listening. Just keep going, Phil. You're on a roll.
I don't want to.
Unless you want me to do a couple.
Yeah, go on. Yes.
Go on. I'm going to do IP. There's 2 IPs I want to talk about. One is just fairly quickly Frontier IP, which is quite small. They made a small loss, but I mean, with an IP company, you don't look really at the P&L. You look more at the NAV. The NAV actually was down, but that was down due to dilution from some capital raising they did. What I find is Frontier IP is a good business. It makes some really clever investments, very early stage IT things. One thing I find, we've looked at Lucid and Pulsive in particular, haven't we, which are 2 companies they're invested in.
We have.
Both promise so much. Both promise to float. Neither have gone anywhere quite yet, have they?
No, they've been making progress with their technologies. I did read the results, but you are right. They haven't. No, they're certainly not listed yet.
I find that a little frustrating, but I like Frontier IP. Now, the other one is IP Group. Now, this group, it's extraordinary how they just completely underdeliver. I am, for my sins, a small shareholder. Don't know why I did it. But they just, we're in a booming tech market and they just completely screw it all up. They've done it year after year after year. But what is really annoying me now, right? If you look at their admin costs, it's £22 million, all right? They've got a market cap of 400 million. That implies they're effectively charging a management fee of 5% to underperform. sorry, the big institutions, and they have some big institutions. They've got the Rail Pension Fund, the Lombard ODA, BlackRock, Vanguard, Bailey Gifford Schroders, Imperial College, Janus Henderson. These are big institutions. They should be hauling the management up and saying, guys, this just is not on. Reduce your costs to a more sensible level, or merge with somebody else like Molten so that the costs are naturally taken out. It drives me insane, this group. It's appalling. There you go.
It's an interesting but fair observation. I mean, 5% equivalent when, I look at my SIP and what the funds are charging, and they are sort of 1 to 2%. And, for an ETF, it's down at 0.1%. So there you go. Fair point.
Anyway, there you go. All right, back to you.
Right. Luceco.
Yes.
Ticket is LUCE, market cap £225 million. And this was my share recommendation of the year, Andrew.
It was, I remember.
Back in December, and I'm pleased to say, just for once, I've got this right, and the shares are up 8% since we recommended it. They've reported full-year results. What do, they supply, this is EV charging systems, LED lighting technology, portable power products, wiring accessories. So their customers are across businesses and domestic. Sales are UK and international. And they reported their full-year results and revenues. Just looking here in front of me, revenues were up to just 1 minute, Andrew. You can tell I'm turning the page because
I wouldn't worry about it. They beat market expectations, all right. They had already, in fact, revised them previously. Well, they were at the upper end of revised expectations. Let's put it that way. But they also had very good final quarter in 2024, so they're talking pretty bullish about 2025. So I think we can say it's a good pick, Phil. You've done well, and fingers crossed you keep doing well.
Thank you very much. But I was just going to.
That's all right. I can always fill in for you. I do. I on the ball, as they say.
You are indeed. I would just point out they have very strong international sales. So doing okay in the UK, but internationally doing very well. So that was good to see. Okay, so moving on swiftly, Gamma Communications. Ticker is GAMA. Market cap is just over $1 billion. And Andrew, this is one I think that you hold is in your mum's portfolio. This one.
Is it? God, I'm not sure. I don't know half the time what is in my mother's portfolio, which is a bit got too many bloody stocks in my view. Anyway, you may well have it, but
all right. Well, we'll moving on swiftly on it. Gamma Communications. They are a international provider. I mean, this is all about tech-based communication systems for customers, for SMEs, mid-sized businesses. So this is things like cloud comms, cloud PBX, telephone switching systems. They've got over 2,000 employees. Operates it's UK, Spain, Benelux, mainland Europe, some in MEA. And the shares, an interesting one, this. I mean, the share price is down 7% over 12 months, 25% over 6 months on sentiment. They've announced a £50 million share buyback, and this is year-end results. Their revenues are up by 11% to just under £580 million. Gross margins up by 51 from 51% to 52%. Profits up by 34%. To £95.6 million, and the cash generation from operations was £117 million on turnover of just under £580 million. So just seems to be making good, strong progress generally across the regions. Has made a small acquisition during the period, and as I say, is doing a share buyback. Probably not surprised by that. Okay, so that was Gamma. Just quickly on defence, widely discussed subject. Plenty of announcements on investment in defence at the moment. Avon Technologies, Andrew.
Oh yeah, they had a very good trading update, didn't they?
Didn't they just? Ticket is AVON. Market cap is £450 million. The shares are up by 39% in 12 months. What do? They do highly specialised breathing systems. On land, at sea, they do. This is breathing systems obviously against gases, emissions in warfare. They do nuclear protective, what they call CBRN protective wear and ballistics helmets. Particularly, they've got a US business doing ballistics helmets, but also in Europe. They've announced I think it was a trading update, Andrew. Yeah, it's a trading update. They've upgraded full year expectations. It was a trading update for the first 6 months of the period. I think of note within this would say that they've had, there were 2 recent contracts announced with the US DoD. The one in March the 3rd for $17.6 million. This is for head protection, advanced head protection, and there was an announcement of a contract for $18 million, again with the US Army back in January, but overall making very strong progress.
I tell you what, it's a great company, and it should be a case study really for so many people, because I remember in the early 80s when I came into the market that, Avon, it was known as Avon Rubber in those days.
That's right, yeah.
And they basically had tires and little rubber motorboats, whatever you want to call them, blow up motorboats. And they've completely transformed the company. They've changed the whole strategy and looked for where growth is and delivered. So well done. I mean, it's an amazing achievement. If only, it should be a case study. A lot of people should look at what Avon have done, how they completely reposition themselves for the future, and have been very successful. Well done, them.
Yeah. It's also, if you look at their last results as well, what they're now doing with their manufacturing operations, particularly in the US, and the way that they're reorganizing them, and to accommodate the sort of growth that they're seeing. It is, as you say, it's really interesting in how they're running this business and how they're scaling this business for the growth opportunity it's got. Really good. There we go. That was it from me. I don't know if there's any others.
Yeah, no, I think that's pretty good. That's a pretty good run through. There's been a lot of news out in RNSs this week, but I mean, there's been nothing that's actually sort of, one of better words, set the world on fire or made you think, oh my God, I got to run for the hills. As usual, we've had a few more stocks delist or get taken over. The number of companies on the stock market is shrinking by the day. Hopefully there'll just be a few left before we have to retire. But anyway, on that note, please send us checks in the post if you want to be talked about. We're happy to be bribed. Oh no, we're not. So I just done my anti-bribery exam.
Yeah, exactly.
Comments. Are we saying the right thing? Is it boring? Is it interesting? I don't know. You tell us. But we'll be back next week. Thanks.
Chat again then, Andrew.
This podcast has been produced and edited by VSA Capital. It is intended for information purposes and not as investment advice. The information is intended for recipients who understand the risks associated with equity investments in smaller companies. Please do your own research and do not rely on a single source when making an investment decision. VSA Capital may derive fees from this content and seeks to do business with the companies mentioned.